from the Mercy One studio. Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.
Welcome to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. I'm Kelly Mesher-Collins with the Diocese of Des Moines. On today's show, we're visiting with Edward Malesic, who is installed on Monday, the Bishop of Cleveland. Bishop Malesic and Bishop Joensen have been friends since their seminary days together in Ohio. But before we get to today's interview, let's find out what's on the Bishop's mind.
So our last show of summer before we begin the fall season here, Kelly. So for some of us, and definitely a hint of that in the air as well. I feel kind of like I've been liberated a little bit, my own self-isolation after having direct contact with one of our brother priests who tested positive a couple weeks ago. And so self-isolation, like so many. And, it was kind of an interesting experience. I upped my Zoom quotient a lot more. And let me tell you, those COVID tests, they're not painful in any way, but I did have 2 COVID tests. It all depends on the style of the tester. The first guy, he's like, woo, 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 going probing.
So imagine deep, like electric mixer.
Yeah, he can get a job with Roto-Rooter anytime, And then the second woman, on this Wednesday testing me, it was whoop, 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 we're done, And I was like, I will have
it's the compassion factor of women.
I guess women, she didn't, So. That's why, women are good dental aides or something. I don't know. Here, now I'll get comments about being sexist. But so I had to miss the Our Lady of Carter Lake 50th Jubilee celebration last Saturday. But thanks to technology, my homily, Bishop Joensen coming into the friendly confines of Our Lady of Carter Lake. So I got to experience some of that and share the joy of Jubilee with those folks there. And obviously not under the circumstances that they would have wanted, but still a benchmark time. Bishop Dingman had said, when he inaugurated at the Mass 50 years ago, this is something that's going to carry on for more than a century. And so he was kind of joking, like John Bon Jovi, we're living on a prayer. We're halfway there. And but our horizon is obviously that of eternity as well. So lots going on in the world. If people were apocalyptically minded, they would think about the hurricanes and the fires and the pandemic and everything else. But for us, Jesus Christ has been raised from the dead and everything else is different. Can you talk a little bit, Kelly, about some of the things that are happening out?
Sure. Well, I'm sure everybody has heard of Hurricane Laura, which has been pounding the South. There are actually 6 Catholic churches destroyed by the hurricane. The Diocese of Lake Charles, they experienced 150-mile-per-hour winds, and so those 6 churches were damaged. Also, there's a rectory where 20 priests were living, and they had to pick up and leave.
20 priests were living in one rectory?
That's what's It reminds me of the one over by Delaware, maybe a little bit bigger.
Surely
though.
These aren't diocesan priests. That many of them living together.
Let me look.
They're kind of rangers.
See, this is why I need to spend more time reviewing these
articles. Yeah. Can I get a fact checker here? But anyway, no, that's all right, though. So our hearts go out to the people of Lake Charles Diocese. And certainly we can kind of visualize that with our own derecho experience, which damaged 3 roofs for and structures for churches in our own diocese. People are remedying that as well. Grateful to also those who supported our derecho relief fund, and what funds aren't used here will probably be directed more toward the Archdiocese of Dubuque, not because that's my native diocese, but because they experienced so much of the damage and all that's going on, as well as the Diocese of Davenport as well. And, of course, then our friends on the Pacific Coast going through so much and the fires that have been experienced as well, and how that smoke and everything else. So nature has its way, but, humans, and our engagement with the environment and how we experience that too. On a lighter note, Big Ten fans are going to be happy. They're playing. Maybe they couldn't stand that the other conferences were underway, although for us Cyclone fans, we kind of maybe wish that they didn't start the season last Saturday. Plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. The more things change, the more they seem the same. But no, Coach Campbell, he's not the savior, but he's a very capable. We sure he'll right things as well in that regard. So thinking about Christ Our Life Conference, still the opportunity for people to get tickets and to attend in person. That cap of 2,700 people, so don't just presume you can walk in, as it's been reduced for our mitigation measures and all that we're about, but also the great opportunity for live streaming, and looking forward to that, and our guest next week, who is going to be one of the persons appearing as a speaker at Christ Our Life.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll welcome Bishop Edward Malesic. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
Hi, this is Father John Riccardo, and I want to thank Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory for underwriting Christ is the Answer. Losing a loved one, as we know, is never easy, and it can leave you feeling lost and even hopeless at times. But Caldwell Parish helps ease that burden by sincerely caring both about your loss and about your faith. Caldwell Parish Funeral Home and Crematory is Des Moines' only Catholic-owned and operated funeral home. Their number is 515-276-0551 or online at caldwellparish.com.
Thank you, Blessman International, for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio. Everyone lives their life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. How we use that time directly affects if our life will leave a significant impact or not. Each year, Blessman International leads Central Iowans on a 12-day, all-inclusive experience sharing the heart of Christ with children in South Africa. Teams are forming to do something significant in an African child's life. Learn more at blessmaninternational.org. That's blessmaninternational.org.
Welcome back. I'm Kelly Mesher-Collins with the Diocese of Des Moines. On today's show, we're visiting with Bishop Edward Malesic, who was installed on the Bishop of Cleveland this past Monday. Bishop Malesic and Bishop Joensen have been friends for many years and have known each other since attending the same seminary together in Ohio.
Well, I don't know, Bishop Malesic, if you want to be considered a friend of mine, but thank you for appearing in this whirlwind week for you. I don't know if your assistant, you vetted your appointments this week, but here you are in your first week concluding, and thank you for appearing on our radio show.
Hey, Bishop Joensen, how are you today? It's good to be with you and the people of your listeners. It's great to be here in Cleveland as well. You're right, my first few days as Bishop of Cleveland, and I'm speaking to the people of Iowa, so it's a tremendous thing.
Yes, you are, and just so you know, this carries over with Spirit Catholic Radio in Nebraska and also parts of Wisconsin. So you got a little footprint here in the Midwest.
That's great.
Yeah, so not a dramatic geographic shift, but moving over from the Greensburg Diocese to Northeast Ohio and everything else. Yet a very different experience for as well. So all that God has formed you in your life, your own experiences in Harrisburg Diocese and your own family background. As we think about your family, and I can recall meeting your father, certainly, who's still alive. Kind of that Pennsylvania blue collar or working class background. How did that kind of inform your own perspective of things and your own ethic of being a priest and bishop?
Well, thanks for remembering my dad. He's turning 103 on September 24th. So
that bodes well for you, right?
I think so. So I talk to him almost every day. But I grew up in a town called Steelton, so you can tell from the name of that town what a major employer was, steelworkers. And early on, I passed newspapers, and one of the things we had to do was collect the money for the newspapers. Every Saturday I'd visit about 60 different homes. And then just growing up in a family that went to church every week, and we knew we were Catholic, and we knew that we believed in God, and growing up in a very hard-working environment where people worked hard, and family life was so central, so church life was so central. That's what formed me, I think. Being the paper boy formed me into knowing how to discuss with people, how to talk to people, how to work hard myself. Mm-hmm. So I look at so many things in my life and find it to be providential. I had no sense of wanting to be a priest growing up. That was not what I wanted to do. But when I felt the call in my early years of college, I certainly realized how God had prepared me for it.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned that experience of being a paper boy, and that's kind of there may be delivery people these days, but collecting and things like that, that's kind of foreign to people as they simply do, electronic funds or anything else. I can recall.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I would go, I would knock on the door Saturday morning. I'd go out like 9 o'clock in the morning. It wouldn't get back till 2 o'clock because you knock on the door, then these people would invite you in, especially people who were alone in their homes, and you come in and they offer you cookies and milk. Because I did it when I was like 10, 11 years old. I started early. Uh-huh. And Yeah, and you learn how to have discussions with people, and you learn what their needs are. Yeah, it was interesting.
I never thought about that as a kind of a pre-ministerial preparation. The route my brother David and I had, we both had routes that both had townies and the students from Iowa State University. So the students were kind of elusive, trying to get them. You'd have to kind of poach on them, at times, or maybe they were ducking back in. So you'd have to make 3 or 4 trips there. So persistence was part of our lesson, I think. But
and customer service, some people wanted the paper folded a certain way and placed, like 2 inches off to the right side of the door. And like, okay, whatever you want, I'll do that. I can do that.
Now, you have to place the host just the way people want.
I know. What would you like me to do?
With the pandemic and everything else. Well, your father, his longevity is a great grace and blessing to you and to everyone. But you've also lost some family members earlier on in your life.
My dad's on. People always say, well, you have good genes. And I said, oh, you don't know. That's not true. My sister died the year after I was ordained a priest, and she and I were very close to one another. My brother also passed away, and then most of my cousins that are blood-related on one side of the family, mostly from cancer, unfortunately. So, I've seen a lot of death in my family, a lot of suffering. But, and my mother died of cancer too, but I've seen a lot of faith. I saw a lot of faith in my relatives who died of cancer. Yeah.
So not that kind of bitterness toward God or kind of that that sense of, yeah.
No, I mean, certainly questioning. There's no doubt that we all, when something tragic happens, we go through those stages that include denial and anger, but eventually acceptance. I saw that in my sister, who died at the age of 38, and then a cousin from Louisiana who was pregnant with her first child and then discovered breast cancer and was encouraged to undergo chemotherapy, but she would not because it would be very detrimental to the child, if not mortally wound the child. So she had the child and unfortunately then succumbed to cancer later, but that child grew up to be a wonderful young man. And she died with faith as well. So, yeah, I mean... Kind
of reminiscent of Blessed Gianna Molla then, really, not as dramatic as a surgical intervention, but foregoing her own life for the sake of the child. Wow, that's very powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And yet, as a brother and cousin, you're not ministering to them in the same way, right? I mean, you're experiencing this in a different way than as priest.
It was a tradition in our diocese that when a relative died, the priest always preached the homily. But when my sister died, I decided not to preach her homily because someone said, Ed, you might need to have someone minister to you at the funeral. And that was so true. That sometimes we forget that priests and bishops need to have someone to minister to them too. We're human. And so I appreciated that.
Yeah, no, very compassionate, very wise. You mentioned your undergraduate days, a point of connection for us. We were both undergraduate life science majors, biology, zoology, right. Thinking about the health professions until God called the priesthood. Do you think that science background is still part of your horizon of seeing the world and experiencing the world, and even with pandemic happening?
Absolutely. First of all, I think there's today this great mythic division between science and faith, as if there's you either believe in science or you believe in God, which is for both of us not true. I mean, we certainly understand what science is, what it can do, and its limitations, and we also understand what faith can do. And when you put faith and science together, you get a broader vision of life. Understanding the pandemic with some background in biology and the life sciences is very helpful, to understand the importance of why must we maintain social distance, and why is it a good idea to wear masks? That's just basic biology 101. Also, on the issue,
you're just lobbing a grenade into the culture wars right now, Bishop.
Well, I know. Well, no, yeah, probably. That's okay. We could have great dialogues about that, but
let's not go there right now. But no, all right. So that blend of faith and reason, and that how we might there. We both attended the. Was it another comment? I'm sorry.
My address is Des Moines, Iowa.
All mail goes to the Bishop of Des Moines. Well, you've got, I mean, I'm kind of skipping around here, but you've got a number of health institutions. And, of course, the Cleveland Clinic is one of the preeminent health institutions in the world, really, right? So a number of people. Do you have any sense of how the Diocese of Cleveland and some of these places might interact? Are there any places where there's collaboration or anything in that, or is it kind of a premature question?
It is. I'm not quite sure, but I do know that Bishop Perez, who was the bishop before me, did give a talk at the Cleveland Clinic. So I think they have a series where they bring in outside speakers to update or to inform the people that work at the Cleveland Clinic. And so I would expect that might happen. I obviously there's a relationship between the Cleveland Clinic and everything else in the town of Cleveland, because Cleveland Clinic is such a huge employer and such a well-known and world-renowned institution. Mm-hmm. But I do not personally know much about the Cleveland Clinic yet.
Okay, so when they ask you to give an address, then you'll go up to speed. So.
I'll find out something.
There you
I'll
go.
say something.
Yeah. So we both attended the Pontifical College Josephinum Seminary in Columbus, Ohio, down the road a couple hours from Cleveland. You were ahead of me a couple of years, so I don't know that we had a whole lot of classes together, but there was obviously a lot of time of communal life and things. That was in the 80s. Any sense now in the men that you've sent to seminary as a bishop or at Greensburg or in any way, how that experience compares with what men are going through right now?
I think there's a lot of similar experiences. I think the call to the priesthood remains the same. We all wanted to discover what this call was in our lives and how to fulfill God's will in our lives. I think that's the same. I'm happy to say that the men that I've sent to a seminary when I was Bishop of Greensburg they were solid individuals, and I think the focus today in seminary formation is a little bit more on human formation. How do these men relate to people so that they can communicate the gospel effectively, and certainly a strong spiritual formation, which impresses me. These men want to be holy. And I think that was true for all of us back then, too. But, now I have two seminaries in the Diocese of Cleveland. I have a college seminary that we operate, and I have a major theologate that we operate for the formation of priests, permanent deacons, and lay ecclesial ministers.
So very.
By the way, Bishop Joensen, your picture is in the magazine that we have here in the Diocese of Cleveland. So it's a picture of you playing the trumpet and me behind you playing the clarinet.
Not behind me, by my side. I'm not sure what that event was, but I don't think it could have been the Mud Bowl because I was always competing and playing in the.
That's what I thought. It might have been a soccer game. Who knows what it was?
Who knows? Yeah, but there we are in our white and black, and things. Not exactly clerics, but no, that was a great opportunity to perform at liturgies and other events as well. So, and then sports. Part of that, obviously, different ways. I was fortunate to be at the Josephinum a few weeks ago, just kind of both for alumni reunion and checking it out as a prospective place for some of our Des Moines men. The gym floor, my goodness, that's a hardwood floor, and it's just splendor. It's a temple compared to what we experienced. Any recollections of being out on the floor and the different groups that were playing basketball at the time?
Well, because we the people who were not sports minded like me and a few others would start to play basketball. It was so terrible, so we formed our own league called the Misfits, and so these were the people who really couldn't do anything but needed to get some exercise. So the rule was that if you made 3 baskets in any one game, you couldn't come back. You were off the team, so you had to continually miss the
terrible.
basket. You were never
and did halftime everyone took a cigarette break?
Then we charged, but then to make money, raise money for the poor, some charity. We charged admission one time. I remember that. So.
Oh, very noble, very noble.
It was so hilarious. We're stumbling over each other.
So, music and sports in any way? Or you have people trying to convert you to become a Browns fan now already?
Oh, because there's the great rivalry between Pittsburgh, where Greensburg is next to Pittsburgh, and here in Cleveland. So I have a face mask that has the Cleveland Browns on one side and the Pittsburgh Steelers on the other side. So I can flip it over quickly depending where I am.
What a chameleon. Yeah, I became all things.
I got about, when I was leaving, I got about 5 terrible towels from the people from Pittsburgh. But the
from
best
Pittsburgh,
one
yeah.
is about 1 inch by 2 inches that I could stick in my pocket just in case I need to show it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a maniple, the old-fashioned kind of cloth that was part of the vestments. So, that would you'd have to have another penitential rite then probably for people. But and then, do you, as part of your privileges as bishop, do you get to have a box at the Cleveland Orchestra or not? Is that is the Cleveland Orchestra or symphony? I'm forgetting. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I think it's the Cleveland Orchestra, but I do not yet. I just walked. I thought Severance Hall was within walking distance of me because we're near the theater district, which is like 4 blocks away. But unfortunately, Severance Hall is about 15 minutes by car east of me. So, but I'll definitely get there. I'm looking forward to hearing that and seeing the theater as well. But I'm within walking distance of the baseball stadium, the football stadium, basketball stadium. A lot of things here to do. I'm right in downtown Cleveland.
Marvelous. So we're about a minute away from a break, and so I'm going to hold off on a question if you'd be so willing to indulge us and come back after the break, a little bit more substantive question. But so you're succeeding Archbishop Nelson Perez as who's gone on to Philadelphia as Archbishop, and you knew him already, and so how does that connection maybe help you make this transition?
Well, yeah, we've known each other since I've become a bishop. So we've known each other for five years. And it was interesting when he found out that I was going to be named the Bishop of Cleveland, he called me and said, "Ed, I have 2 words for you." I said, "What's that, Archbishop?" He said, "Lucky you." So he made me feel comfortable coming here. You're moving to a new place, you wonder what's it going to be like, and he really gave me great reassurances that I'd love it here.
Beautiful. We're going to take a quick break. I'll kick it back to Kelly here, and then we'll be back.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen on Iowa Catholic Radio and the Spirit Catholic Radio Network.
Thank you, Blessman International, for their support of Iowa Catholic Radio. Everyone lives their life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. How we use that time directly affects if our life will leave a significant impact or not. Each year, Blessman International leads Central Iowans on a 12-day, all-inclusive experience sharing the heart of Christ with children in South Africa. Teams are forming to do something significant in an African child's life. Learn more at blessmaninternational.org. That's blessmaninternational.org.
Thank you, Big Red Q Quick Print, for underwriting the sports report. Family owned and operated since 1980, Big Red Q Quick Print is a full-service print shop ready to help you with all your printing needs with speed and accuracy. Forms, manuals, brochures, letterhead, envelopes, business cards, custom invitations, design, and bindery. Big Red Q Quick Print, located across from Merle Hay Mall. Online at bigredq-desmoines.com. Big Red Q Quick Print. We make printing easy.
Welcome back. I'm Kelly Mescher-Collins with the Diocese of Des Moines. You're listening to Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen, and we are back with Bishop Malesic of the Diocese of Cleveland, who was installed on Monday.
Indeed, and I don't know our sponsor, the Big Red Q. I don't know if that's a stealth Nebraska endeavor or something with Big Red, but anyway, we'll let them be and not touch that. Bishop Malesic, coming now and maybe a little grief, leaving the Greensburg Diocese where you had served and for 5 years. Very close to where my brother Mark and his son Liam, now in 6th grade there at the Cathedral School. They're going to miss you a lot, and they really grew to, both from a distance and the opportunities they had to meet you, were very touched by you and your humanity. You were very concerned pastorally during those 5 years, including a pastoral letter about the opioid crisis, and were very proactive in trying to help heal and foster support for victims of clergy sexual abuse. What do those kind of say about you and what people might expect in Cleveland? And did you have some things that you were really focusing on that you now have to hand on to your successor?
Yeah. Bishop, I always wanted to be a pastor. That's all I wanted. Once I felt the call to the priesthood, I really wanted to be a pastor, to work with people directly. I don't know if you know the story, but in the Josephinum, where we studied seminary, you could get 2 degrees. The the MDiv, which everyone had to get, and that was the pastoral degree, and then the MA in theology, which was the academic degree, and that was optional. Mm-hmm. I did not get my MA. And all that was required was for me to write a paper, but I didn't write the paper, and some of my professors were concerned. They said, why aren't you not writing the paper? It'd be easy for you to get the MA, Master of Arts in Theology, in addition to the MDiv, the pastoral degree. And I said, because I don't want to work in the bishop's office, and if I get an MA, they might want to send me onto further studies, and I never wanted to do that. Well, that didn't work out for me because I then went on. I thought you had to have that to study canon law. And when Bishop Datillo asked me to study canon law, I said, well, I don't have an academic degree. I can't do that. He said, well, we looked into that, and you don't really need it. You'll be okay.
Nice try, bucko.
I know, nice try, bucko. So anyway, that's been my heart. And with the opioid crisis, what happened was pastors began talking to me about them. They were burying like young people on a regular basis, and I would go out and visit parishes, and parents would come up and say, please pray for my son. And I'd say, can I ask you why? And they'd say, well, he's addicted, and we don't know if he's going to die today or next year, but we're afraid for him. And this became routine. So I began to understand that this was something that was really a burden to our community. And so I reached out to a group of people and asked them, what do you think the church can do to help? And they said, not to repeat what has been done in the community, but what the church can do real well is pray and educate. And so we began to educate our people. I think people that were involved in the opioid crisis on a secular level, like civic officials, were just amazed that I could gather 100 people, 200 people to talk to them about this, because when they, had gatherings, there might be 10 people, 5 people, they couldn't get the people together to talk with. But I could, because that's what the church does. We gather together. And so we were in a unique position as a church to help spread the news about what addiction is and maybe where people can get help. What am I going to turn over? What will turn over to the successor in Greensburg? Well, there's some things that need to be done yet. We beefed up communications tremendously, but I always wanted to hire a diocesan theologian who could really help to inform communications and help with the evangelization effort. So that's one of the things that I would hope the next Bishop of Greensburg will be able to continue. And also vocations. Vocations became very critical in Greensburg, vocations of the priesthood particularly.
Uh-huh. Very good. Well, we're about 30 seconds out here, and we really appreciate your being with us. You actually came almost a year ago now, it's been, for my ordination installation on the Feast of St. Vincent de Paul.
I did. It was wonderful.
Any impressions of Iowans or that experience being here out with us until we get you out next time?
Well, it's very flat there. But same thing here in Cleveland. Iowans are typical of the area, just warm, down-to-earth, great, faithful people.
Thank you. We're going to have to sign off. Bishop Malesic, many blessings and graces to you and your new ministry.
Thank you, Bishop.
This has been another edition of Making It Personal with Bishop Joensen. Thank you to our guests and all of our listeners in Iowa and Nebraska.
You can hear Making It Personal with Bishop William Joensen every week on Iowa Catholic Radio and iowacatholicradio.com.